Hey, how's it going, guys? Gonna do a review, or I should say a 10-hour update of my 24 YZ450FX. So let's get down to what I have disliked so far on this bike, because let's be honest, everybody loves negatives first. I don't know why. It's not the right thing. But what I didn't like on this bike, I already touched on. I didn't really like how the plastics were wearing and like other areas like the case. I just see a lot of wear already. Not a big deal though. That's not a deal breaker for me. It's a dirt bike. We're putting it through really rough conditions. So the other thing I mentioned in my first video is the clutch. I went hydraulic, the GYTR hydraulic clutch, just because I'm clutching it a lot in that slow technical area. I didn't dislike the cable clutch. Actually, I really liked it. I loved the feel and the feedback of it. So I gave a little bit of that up with going to the hydraulic, but I like that easier pull, and coming from my KTM to this, they're very similar. So I just wanted to make it kind of uniform, okay? Not trying to make this a KTM. Let's not get crazy. So we touched on the plastics, we touched on the clutch. Not in love with the air filter of how it is right over the intake like that, and it just funnels down. It just makes me a little nervous, so I've been tilting my bike over, and I have been changing my filter that way. I do have the twin air kit for this, so I haven't put it on yet. I'm still using the stock, but I bought that because I just feel like that's going to give me a little bit of peace of mind to secure that filter down and seat it, so we're not getting any kind of dust or dirt past that filter. I do notice down at the bottom there's a couple of hot spots where you can see the air is getting pulled into that intake, and that's the areas where I'm being careful. So I'm actually greasing the rim. I haven't done that in a while, but I'm doing it on this bike. Brakes, no complaints there. It's as impressive. The front brake is really strong on this bike. I didn't expect it to be, but it is really strong. Plenty of power. That was definitely a surprise. Don't like the pegs. I haven't found pegs that I want to go with yet to replace the stock ones, but I'm getting kind of used to them, so I'm not sliding around too much on them as when I first hopped on this bike. This bike, it has a lot of torque, okay? And that torque will wear you out. So there's no way to get rid of that. It's a 450. But I'm going to tell you, you take the slider in the app, the Yamaha tuner app, you slide it almost all the way over. I'm one off the softest setting. And right now, that's what I have this bike at with both maps. First map is low traction control. Second map with the blue light, that is high traction control, identical mapping. I started off with that low traction, and then when I got tired, because I put about 2 hours on this the other day, trying to mimic like a hair scramble. And when you put it in high traction control with that setting, it is very smooth. It is very controllable. I'm going to say it's very controllable until about a quarter throttle. As soon as you get above quarter throttle and half throttle, that's when the 450 comes out. I actually hit like a stick hit my front wheel, a little tree the other day, and it shot the bars out from under me, and whoop, whiskey throttle, and on my ear I went. So like this whole side, yeah, pretty bruised up right now, but nothing broken, so I will take that, right? No issues so far. I got a little bit of a boil over a couple of weeks ago when I had it out because I was idling. I know I'm not supposed to, but we're kind of stuck. We're doing trying to connect some trails. So that I realized, man, this thing's going to boil over quick. So I added the GYTR fan kit. Super simple installation. It's 3 bolts, plugs right in, right here, if you can see that. Put a little dielectric grease in there. Done. It took me about 15 minutes. Quick tip on that, right? So a lot of times if you do a lot of starting and stopping, or you're sitting there and letting that fan run too much, you could possibly kill your battery. So to avoid that, if you're shutting your bike on and off, make sure you're holding down this kill switch for 3 to 5 seconds. What that does is it will kill all power to the bike, and it'll stop that fan immediately. And because let's be honest, what's that fan doing? When that engine's not running, you're not circulating that coolant. So just shut the bike off, save your battery. Just a quick tip for you. So let's move on to the next thing I did, the big one and probably most important, suspension. The stock suspension was great on this bike, especially for moto. I go from like 168 pounds, 175. That's kind of my window where I've been fluctuating lately. And the suspension, when I brought it out to some single track, rougher, faster single track, it was rough and it was beating me up. I was sore, shoulders, arms, wrists, they were just a little beat up, right? So during that time, I said, I had two guys I was riding with, both A riders. One was my size, the other one is a little heavier, and let them both ride it. And they both came back and said the same. Yeah, it probably needs a revalve. It's a little stiff. So that I'm not going past that, right? So I'm not at their level. And once I get to that level, I don't, if it's too stiff for them. So I had factory connection, revalve the rear, new springs up front. They're 48s up front. I forget what stock is, but yeah, we just went a little lighter up for those. So it feels better. I do have to make some adjustments on the clickers. So up front right now, my compression is only out 8, and I still have about 3 inches to go on my travel. So I have room to make it softer. I'm going to make it softer where I'm almost bottoming the suspension and turning it in. But I purposely did want this to be stiffer than my KTM. Okay, so that was an improvement that I had to make. But I feel like if you're going to do any kind of racing or anything like that, who's not doing their suspension, right? So I'm not going to fault that for the bike. If you're a heavier guy, you may not need to do anything, because if you're heavier, this may work out perfect, because it was just a little too stiff in the spring department for me. I didn't think it had anything to really do with the valving, but it also could have been the fork oil could have helped. They tell you if you're going to do GNCC style racing or cross country, they say in the manual, take 10 mils of oil out of the forks. But I just wanted to go ahead and get it revalved for me the way I like it. It's going to be fun to compare this to my KTM has Race Tech gold valves in it, and that is much softer. It's much plusher than this setup. But again, I'll have to revisit that once I start turning the clickers out to make this a little softer. But it was a good starting point. I rode it for 2 hours the other day, see if I can manage this thing on a hair scramble, and I think I could. It didn't, I'm not sore aside from I crashed, so this side of my body is pretty bruised up right now. But aside from that, that has nothing to do with the suspension. So that is it. Suspension, fan, hydraulic clutch, pretty much done. Next thing, when we wear them out, tires. I'm probably going to go, I don't know if I'm going to go MX-34s or the new AT-82s. I don't know which one I'm going to try on there, but we got a little ways for that. What else can I tell you? It's still going back to back between 350 and 450. This bike still feels very nimble. Where, again, I guess where we can touch on which bike's right for you. Do you like to lug, or do you like to rev a little more? I'm going to say the 350 motor is more exciting. It's more fun. It's in the sense of, if you like to rev it out a little bit, you have broad power band, or very broad. Where this guy, still the torque pulls really hard. And if you want to shoot out of corners and pull wheelies and stuff, this is the bike for you, because this thing puts such a smile on my face when I ride it, because anytime I want, I'm cruising down a trail, 4th gear, and I just little bounce and clutch freaking front wheel, carry it anywhere you want, riding wheelies. 350, you got to be a little more aggressive to do stuff like that, and I'm talking about kind of play riding. Really tight technical, I'm going to say I prefer the 350. This thing can do it, and in stock form, I'm going to tell you, this wins for flame outs. This thing never really flames out. I've had 2 in the 10 hours so far, and one of those was my fault. I just missed the clutch coming in real rough turn, and I'm on the rear brake and I'm getting bounced around, and I just missed the clutch, or I should say didn't miss it, but I just hit it too late. I was already on rear brake and locked up the rear tire. Flame out. The other one was just this last ride. I was coming over like a little between two trees up a little lip, and as I'm coming over, I went to clutch it, and it died on me. It could be my fault, but I'm going to call that a flame out on the bike. I haven't raised the idle, is stock idle, and man, it lugs like nothing I've ridden before for flame outs. It's great in that sense. So that I'm really pleased with. And I'm happy that I rode it for that 2 hours and I didn't come back smoked. I'm just sore from the crash. Aside from that, good. I went back to the stock bars. The Renthal bars that I got that were pretty similar in height, they were 10 mils higher, but I didn't like the sweep. So if your hands are square here, for whatever reason, these bars, they rotated them and pointed my wrists and hands out a little bit, and almost like a beach cruiser a little bit, and I didn't like it, okay? And especially switching back and forth to bikes, I'm not trying to make one like the other, but I want them to feel as close as can be while being different, if that makes sense. And those bars were throwing me off because instead of being like squared up, I was like, this is weird. Every time, it took me about 10 minutes every time I switched back and forth between them to get used to the bar bend. So we went back to stock, put a bar peg, had my Renthal bar peg because that's stock, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't like it. If you have any questions, I don't really have anything negative to say about this bike so far. Maintenance has been easy. I'm getting to really like the simple 8 mil basically everywhere. That's pretty nice. Aside from this, where is it? The other side's got an Allen over here. That's a pain in the ass. But man, I took all the plastics off this the other day, did a clean on it, and everything was like 8 mils in it. It was nice. So yeah, if you have any questions about anything in particular on the bike, feel free to reach out to me, and I usually get back to everybody, any of my comments pretty quickly. And I had a bunch of riding footage from the other day, but I use a DJI for the most part, Action 4, but I still have my GoPro, and I really like that really wide angle lens. And I threw it back on there, not realizing the camera totally reset itself. So all my settings were erased. And yeah, I had a fisheye going on, and you don't want to watch that. It's terrible. So I'll get some more riding footage of this bike soon. I'm not making any promises. I'm debating, let's put it that way. I'm debating to race this the last hare scramble round this next weekend. The KTM is right over here, and that guy is not down for the count, but I found some metal shavings in the oil. That's 60 hours. So it made me a little nervous. They're aluminum shavings. They're not ferrous. So I did rip the top end off. Not the top end, I should just say. I checked the valves, and then I took the cams out, and I wanted to check everything to make sure there's nothing going on in the top end anywhere, and it looks perfect. So we can only hope this guy is going to last as long with no issues as the KTM so far. Anyway, thanks for watching.